Hey, everybody, it's me, Rob Ryan from Entrepreneurial Thinkers, just dropping in to introduce a new episode. I just finished a fascinating conversation with Sam Karshenboym from the Lox Club, an online based but in real life online hybrid dating platform out of New York City, Los Angeles, Miami, spreading across the country, now opening itself out to the world. And it was a fascinating exploration of not just celebrating individuality, our humanity, the power in authentically living as your both Sam's personal story as well as the professional story behind the business at the Lox Club. But it was also this very thoughtful analysis and investigation of where technology plays a role in our human relationships that we build. So if you're dating or an active online dater and you want to learn more about the thinking about how people are trying to build platforms and communities to do this better, to make it better for you, this is the show you're going to want to check out. And Sam brings an awesome personal energy to this, just a kindness and an intelligence and just a genuine human sweetness and passion that made the conversation purely joyful for me here today. So I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Hola, hello, hi, bienvenido, and welcome back or welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers. As a quick reminder for everybody, this show is a show in which we explore my belief that the world doesn't simply need more entrepreneurs or investors, but in fact, we need more entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors of society and industry. We talk with some of the brightest, most interesting entrepreneurial thinkers each week, and today we are excited and grateful to be joined by a great entrepreneurial thinker, in my opinion, Sam Karshenboym. Sam is the dynamic problem solver behind the scenes at Lox Club and formerly of 305 Fitness and a number of other illustrious companies throughout his career. As COO, Sam leverages his widely diverse career experiences to thrive on the joy of crafting solutions to complex problems, whether it's streamlining operations or orchestrating memorable user experiences. His journey from roles in media, entertainment, and technology to co-creating Lox Club showcases his knack for innovation, or as I might say, entrepreneurial thinking. As we'll discuss throughout the show, it's not just about business for Sam, though. He loves to openly celebrate individuality as at its core, or at the core of his being, from navigating his own identity to championing diversity in all aspects of life. Testament to the power of relationships, authenticity, and the importance of leading by example. Sam, welcome, buddy. It's great to have you on the show today, and welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here.
We're doing a little bi-coastal thing, right?
Yes.
We're both cool guys, New York City and LA. Like this is the dream life that everybody wants to fly back and forth and have. So we're going to do that today. I know you lived out here and worked out here at one point in your life, so you know what it's like. It's 70 degrees and sunny, and I'm sitting out here in Hollywood, looking outside at the Hollywood sign. So it's like a cliche, but it is my life. So I'm super excited to have you, and we've got a lot to cover. We're going to uncover the interesting story behind the current company that you're building, but we're also, as we always do, really going to kind of dig into the entrepreneurial thinking in you and behind this that helps us understand why the company and what it's doing at its core is so fundamentally important, but really also like kind of where that comes from inside of you. So I'm going to jump right in. We've got a first question that I want to touch on because of some key words that were in your bio, which I'm sure was written by you at some point, and it's just been repasted on social media, and we scrape it off, right? So straight away in your bio, you talk about relationships, authenticity, and the importance of leadership. And so I'd like you to tell me, why do you put so much value in human relationships and authenticity as a person and as a leader?
Totally. For me, I have just been my whole life very authentic to who I am. I think we all have a very special something within us that makes us unique. And rather than sort of following the crowd or trying to conform, I think it's really quite special and beautiful when someone expresses themselves authentically, and then even more beautiful when someone can find another person to connect with in this authentic way to
Right.
kind of amplify that connection and just the sort of authentic nature of the connection. Like it's not built off presenting in a way that you think you should be. It's actually like who you are expressed outwardly and then being received in this open way by someone else. And when that happens, it's really quite magical. So
I love it.
I'm a big fan of relationships, human connection. I was a sociology major in college, just fascinated by people and how people connect. And I think at the end of the day, we are social beings and creatures, and we're meant to be among others. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's really such a beautiful thing to finding someone that you connect with. I
Yeah.
mean, again, it's really actually like health when you do. It adds so much fulfillment and value to your life. So I've been in the kind of social wellness space my entire career, really, whether that's in fitness or now in romance or entertainment. Really connecting people, bringing joy, and again, doing that through the lens of authenticity, whatever's most true to you.
That's awesome. Man, you hit on so many key words there. We just met, for those that don't know. Sam and I literally just met, 10 minutes ago off air. He was referred to us to be on the show by a great friend, Heather Carter, another alumnus of the show, which I said on a little BTS thing I posted this morning. Like, that's the way the world's supposed to work, right? It's like good people beget more good people, and good things come out of that. But man, I got to tell you, I like you even more already because you used words that I use all the time, right? So you used beautiful, you used magical, you used joy and joyfulness. And I 100% believe that those are true. I'll add maybe a little validation to your thesis is you and I probably come at some parts of life from very different places. The truth is, like, here I am at 55 years old. And at 55 years old, I can tell you openly that, like, it wasn't until my mid 40s, early to mid 40s, that I really kind of got to a place where I was like, okay, like, this is who I am. And this is pretty much who I think I was when I was like 16 or 17. And then I just went away and chasing all the other things I thought I was supposed to be. And so I always say, like, I wouldn't turn the clock for a million years or $1 million, because I'm living in the best version of myself right now, and I suspect it's only going to get better because I've uncovered this, right? So that's awesome. I love your perspective. Let's turn that perspective on the other side of the lens, though. You've spoken in interviews recently about that you think that we're in the midst of an epidemic of loneliness, and in
Yeah.
fact, trying to provide relief to that epidemic via Lox Club. So tell me, like, why do you think it's an epidemic, if indeed it is, and how did we get here?
Yeah, I think it's the stats on this actually are quite staggering. I believe most recently it was said that 50% of people are experiencing loneliness to some degree. And I think why this is so important, as I said, we're social beings and meant to be with others. And actually, by being socially isolated or lonely, that is actually having real physical impact on our health. It's leading to an increased risk of heart disease, diabetes. I think they even said that experiencing loneliness increases mortality risk at the end of the
Wow.
day. It's like something like comparable to smoking, I don't know, like 10 cigarettes a day. Something
Oof.
quite extreme that you wouldn't make that connection, especially even with after COVID quarantine. So many people were alone and by circumstance had to be in some ways disconnected, and that had an actual toll. Like it was normalized in a way, but there was an actual impact to that on our physical health long term. And so
How do you think we got here?
I think technology, while improving our lives in many ways, of course, and yes, connecting us in many ways as well, has accelerated the disconnection that people feel, the loneliness that people feel. It's very easy to be in the bubble of your phone and not in the bubble of actual other humans,
Yeah.
whether that's on a Friday night or just in a 15-minute break you have throughout the day. You're on your phone rather than like at the water cooler talking to people. And I do worry about the long-term impact of technology where there's such an emphasis on convenience and improving our lives, of things being quicker, faster, easier. But the expense of that is like literally our physical health. If we have fewer social connections as a result of that, in real life, actual connection, which, like I
Yeah.
said,
Wait, so you mean those friends on Facebook, they're not really friends?
I don't know that they are.
Dang
I
it.
think it's
The followers on Instagram, that's not my family. Like, they're not really they're not my besties in every city around the world.
I would argue they're not. I mean, to some people maybe, and also I am not active on social media, and I do like scrolling TikTok. I find it entertaining, but I don't think it's a good use of my time, and I do think it's accelerating or just or contributing anyway to a feeling of being in some ways disconnected from people. Actually, like they're not real. It's not a real connection. So, in
Wow.
speaking for my experience.
Yeah, I mean your experiences, but then you're also lending some data and some concrete facts that are being assembled by other people that are looking at this reality, and then you have your own personal view, but then you also have it backed up by work that you're doing.
Yeah, and I'll add as well that I think they were saying every year the percentage of people experiencing loneliness among young adults continues to increase. I think it's increased
Wow.
actually every single year since I believe it was the 1970s. And so the fact that specifically among this younger demo, where they're being raised with technology being so integrated into their lives, I'm not surprised there's a correlation between that and a rise of feeling lonely. And I'm
Yeah.
concerned that society is not acting quick enough to counterbalance the rise of technology with innovation around how to actually drive social connection. And so that's what is my what's driving a lot of my interest in social wellness and creating that connection.
That's yeah, no, that's thank God. I'm glad you're working on this. All right, so let's and this is a little bit earlier than normal in most conversations, but I think it's germane to what you were just talking about. So tell us about Lox Club, right? Because I always love asking entrepreneurs when I first meet them, like, why are you working on this? So why this? Why now? Which I think we may have just teased part of the why now. This is important, and then why should people care? Which I think you may have also so let's talk about Lox Club and why all these whys related to you and your passion for it.
Totally. Well, I want to actually just rewind for just a minute before I get to Lock Club
Yeah,
because my
go for it.
I've really been passionate about the dating space for coming on 10 years now. I was at a fitness startup for many years prior to joining Lox Club, but just sort of the TLDR would had in my own single years in New York, we got really frustrated with the dating apps and just saw around me everyone feeling this feeling of frustration around them, and so became very passionate about this idea of social connection and genuine connection that isn't matching on an app, but actually leading to real, like in real life connection that
Yeah,
leads to better happiness and fulfillment. And so, actually, when COVID started and we entered lockdown, I started dating from home, which was the side hustle kind of passion project where I help people meet each other from their homes. Essentially, it was kind of a virtual matchmaking company where I hosted
that's
these
awesome.
very curated events. And it was with the express goal of just connecting people, even during quarantine, on these live virtual events. And it was all kind of compatibility based. So tried to curate groups of people who I thought would be good with each other. And very proud to say it led to several marriages and ultimately led me to Lox Club, which is where I am today.
That's
And
awesome.
very grateful to work in the space and innovate in this space because I do think there's a lot of opportunity to improve how people connect and meet romantically and then also in other ways for friendship and business and otherwise. So,
Yeah,
Lox Club specifically is a dating app. It's for Jewish people. It leans Jewish, kind of like a Seinfeld episode or a
right.
Dougie. And it's for people with ridiculously high standards, which I say a bit tongue in cheek. Yes, there are kind of high standards we hold the community to, but also it's meant to feel a bit tongue in cheek and just lead with a bit more humor and self-awareness around the fact that typical kind of rinse and repeat dating apps just aren't working for other people, and we're trying to do it in a different way. So, a bit about Lox Club: we have a vetted community. We have a membership committee that reviews all applications, again to ensure our community is held just high to high standards. We're
Yeah,
boosting trust and safety, and ensuring that everyone is really there with intention for dating. Let's see, we launched in early COVID days, initially in New York, LA, and Miami, and today we're open all around the country and growing waitlists internationally. It did because it started in COVID during COVID lockdown. It was initially just a swiping app, but increasingly as we have moved away from COVID and the world has reopened. We're leaning into IRL events where people can meet outside the app. We've recently also launched matchmaking, a way for people to meet again off the app and go straight to the date. What I really love about what Lox Club is doing is really thinking outside the box, and not just leaning into another swiping model, but actually more about driving real social connection and looking at it through the lens of creating connection within niche communities. This is leaning towards the Jewish community,
Sure.
and actually starting to develop other clubs as well that serve other niche communities that are
Oh,
looking to meet
nice.
people with shared values and
That'll
backgrounds.
kind of exist inside the broader holding company slash bubble of the platform and technology, but individualized communities to serve different interests, different needs.
Exactly, yeah. So it's basically this ecosystem we're creating where people can date within the club and then eventually also across clubs. We haven't launched other clubs
Right.
yet, so that's why I say, it
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah,
been
yeah.
fully realized yet, but we're growing wait lists, and the vision is very much to have just an easy way for niche communities to connect again within each other and then also across to replicate the world we live in. You may meet people through friends and family if you have shared values, backgrounds within your niche, but then also you go to the local grocery store, you go to the local bar, and then you meet people of all backgrounds, and there's success in both. And so we're trying to kind of
Sure.
replicate that within this model, and it's very exciting and more personalized at the end of the day to what people are looking for.
It sounds like it. That's also awesome too. I'm a huge advocate and fan of leveraging technology to amplify or strengthen the world that we are, as opposed to replacing it. Right.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna. I'll spare you the rant on AI. I'll summarize it with my headline that I talked about in a different podcast last week. But this idea that I believe is ultimately it'll prove to be the great differentiator and value add, as opposed to be the great replacer that everybody seems to be prognosticating it to be. And ultimately, I think that, and I guess this does play to your world. My take on it was more kind of around storytelling and media, but ultimately, I believe that statement that I made takes the human experience or the human story or the human stories told. In your case, I guess the human connection and events, when reach out and shake someone's hand or give them a hug, it turns those into kind of the premium valued, more valued experiences. And so we won't say like, well, no, I'm only going to do this, or like you'll just it'll be. And sports is kind of it. You were in the entertainment industry. Sports kind of over the last 25 years. Like when I was a little years ago, you could spend $6 and go to a Cubs game in Chicago, and anybody could get in, right? And nowadays, if I wanted to go to a Dodgers game, I'd probably have to spend $700, right, just to get it out of there. And so those things, the live experience has become the premium experience, right? Whereas you could just watch it, be a great Dodger fan, and just watch it on all 162 games on TV or on the radio, and it doesn't make you less of a Dodgers fan. So I think I'm excited to hear that you guys are essentially from scratch creating this multimodal platform and community that develops, as you said, ecosystems of humans in technology to just smooth over and improve the edges. That's great. I do have a more complex psychological question for you here. So you kind of just ate half the question I was going to ask with that answer, which is awesome. So let me go to the punchline part of this. We talked about a loneliness epidemic, right? Which we talked about disconnectedness because of the technology can make us feel disconnected but still connected. I'm wondering, are we seeing like a shift in trust or a lack? Are we seeing a growth and a lack of trust between people? Are we seeing like people who just maybe purely online dated and are now like, I don't trust the apps, I don't trust the people I might meet, I might damned, I might hurt, etc. And so therefore, is the way that you guys are approaching this at Lox Club maybe kind of a response to that, right? As opposed to just doing it because you guys think you're clever.
Yeah. So I think because dating apps are serving such a specific need for most people around finding a partner, a long-term partner, it's like very much like I have a problem or something, a pain point. I'm turning to a dating app to find that. I think what's happened is there's this concept of dating fatigue or swiping fatigue in the industry where there's when you say loss of trust, I think there's loss of trust around the mechanism that is modern dating, which is swiping, and which is basically how the default way that people are trying to meet right now. I think there's a crazy stat that like only about 10 to 15% of long-term relationships started on dating apps. And so that's a very small percentage given that is relative to the number of people that are on dating apps and spending hours a week trying to find their partner.
Right.
And when you kind of zoom out and think that the Tinder swiping era started 10 to 15 years ago, and since then there have been all these kind of replicas of that launched. But we are here today in 2024 and still grappling with this kind of being the mainstream way that people meet, but it's not actually working. That is where we've come in and asked ourselves, what is the better solution? What's actually the more effective way? Because there's loss of trust from dating users that this intended solution isn't working for my pain point that is very real. And I am year after year after year still single, or I was in a relationship and now I'm not anymore, and now I need to try again. Like I'm not willing to continue spending hours a week swiping. So please help me.
Interesting.
And so the solution to that, from our perspective, is not to keep swiping. Some dating apps are taking perhaps a more AI angle, and that's not something that I am thinking a lot about. It's for us, it's really more about, again, human-led social connection. How can we, either through IRL programming events, and intentional events that are fun and interesting and help break the ice and create points of connection, or premium matchmaking? How can we take your preferences and look through our database and curate matches for you, so you're not spending hours, but rather it could feel like a white glove concierge experience where you're not trying to find a needle in a haystack in your swipe queue. You're actually trusting the dating app that you're signing up for in an authentic way and saying, I trust you to find me a great partner based on these criteria I'm looking for. You're the experts. I'm not. Like, I don't know how to promote myself. I don't know how to find that one person to be investing my
Yeah.
time in. Help me find that. That's a lot of what's exciting us about, yeah, the future of delivering on a better dating experience.
You just made me think of a question I hadn't thought of prior. Right. So I'm coming to you. I'm in the cast of the user now. Sorry, I'm coming to you in part because, like you said, you're the experts, right? So you can help me navigate this already historically complicated thing, relationships and romance, etc. But you can also help me navigate the modern day technology versions of that. And I don't want us to turn this into a politics podcast, but you made me think of this. Like, so in an era that we just happen to be going through right now, in the U.S. especially, but globally as well in different ways, where like our politics and our positions on things, important things, are so strongly held, right? And so polarizing in some way. Are you finding some of the membership is kind of saying like, I don't trust like just a random world out there where I might run into some crazy, I wear a blue hat or a red hat, or I wear a red hat and they wear blue hats, and I don't like, or I'm this ish and they're that ish, and like this could be dangerous. Like I'm like, not to be exact, but like, are you finding that some people are like coming to you because they find, or at least they hope, that there's safety in these clubs or communities? Talk about that, if you will.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Really interesting also, obviously, now being a Jewish dating app post October 7th. I mean,
Right?
touching on that, we've definitely seen an uptick in applications and just general interest in Lox Club since then, because people who are Jewish are seeking community and solidarity.
Yeah.
And so um, it's very real. People are turning to us in that lens specifically, to find and embrace their Judaism and their background.
Yeah. So there's a level of comfort,
Yeah,
and then the level of, and my word, not yours, like a level of, you can tell me if I'm wrong, like safety, or at least perceived emotional safety, maybe.
yeah. I mean, there's totally when you're with a like-minded group of people, there is a comfort in that because there's shared values and
Yeah.
perspectives to some degree, and so Yeah, I mean, safety is an interesting word. I think to some it does. Whether it's safety, it's comfort,
Yeah.
it's ease. It might
Yep.
be different things to different people, but there is, I think, value, especially in such divided times, to
Yeah.
being with a like-minded group of people.
No, agree, totally agree. And what's fascinating, compliment to you guys, because it seems from how I'm listening to this is you're not just trying, this is going to sound funny, you're not trying to build for everybody, but in a sense, because you're curating clubs inside of the vision of the over, you are building for everybody, right? But you're doing it with a great sensitivity, it seems, to each individual community, no different than a healthy, emotionally strong, empathetic human would be if I traversed across the spectrum of communities in Los Angeles and I respectfully stopped and engaged with each one of them differently, right? But yet we're all in this thing called Los Angeles. So kudos to you guys for approaching it that way. That sounds, frankly, I think that's the winning formula. But who am I? All right, we'll leave it to our friend Heather as the super smart investor. She can decide on that. All right. So I am curious. I don't come from the online dating era. I'm not like a pure technology product pusher guy, sure, but I am curious. Like you must Lox Club or any kind of relationship interactive platform like this must sit on top of just like massive amounts of data, right? And we're not going to anonymize anything here in this question, but I'm just curious, like what kinds of like trends or truths is some of your data revealing to us about us in 2024?
So I think the first piece that comes to mind is around growing demand around events, IRL programming. We launched this probably about 2 years ago. Like again, once quarantine restrictions started loosening, and we started hosting launch events for Lox Club in different cities. And since then, have made it a regular practice. We host at least 5 or 6 events a month, and we'll be increasing that soon. People want to meet IRL, whether it's just at a happy hour, at a pasta making class, a Broadway show, a comedy show, a member hosted event just at someone's house or on the beach, at a Shabbat dinner. We're creating a lot more touch points, and there's a lot more demonstrated demand from people of all ages to meet in person. There's just, like I said, it's a reaction to the fatigue people are feeling around, and the fatigue and also ineffectiveness, let's say, around swiping. And so, of course, of course, it is working for people, some people, I get that, but it's also not working for others. And so that's one
Sure.
data point that's really interesting, is that people do want to meet through events. Another really interesting data point is around matchmaking. Like people are very excited about this new service we recently launched, where people can essentially take the time and effort they're investing into swiping and channel it into a better use of their time. And then, like I said, leave it to us to really thoughtfully curate matches, looking through our entire database of thousands of people for the most compatible matches for them. We started beta testing this matchmaking program about 6 months ago to really finesse it and make sure that as a dating app, we can make that transition to a premium matchmaking service. Had some really
Yeah.
great success, great feedback, and we're excited to launch this publicly, which we did about 6 weeks ago. And demand has been very, very high. We almost like really can't keep up. We're hiring matchmakers, and
Wow.
um, it's a very exciting time. And so what the data is showing us again is that there's a very clear demand for a personalized, tailored experience to really what you're looking for in a match, and having Lox Club, really own that and find a great partner. And I'll add, especially with the niche dating, the fact that it's not just matchmaking, but Jewish matchmaking essentially. Like if you're looking for a Jewish partner, what a great place to go to, and basically, what a great community to be curating from, because so
Sure.
many people in the community are Jewish and looking for the same, and so we can deliver, on great matches who share that background.
And yet still in a modern way, right? Leveraging technology, platform, a much wider pool, and the kind of the technological efficiencies that, like the great local matchmaker woman at the local temple, she lists, 37 people,
Right.
right? And it's the same cycle of relationships, and like she's awesome and everybody
Yeah.
trusts her, but like she can only scale so big,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Exactly.
so
Exactly. We have an incredible network, incredible database. It's such an amazing jumping off point to go from a dating app that has thousands of people that have applied and been on over the years to now say we're actually going to again do the work for you and curate from
Yeah.
among that exact same database. It's so much bigger than what a typical kind of solo matchmaker in a given community
Right.
could have access to. And so, yeah, we're really excited and
And yet, like you said, it's hey, we should do this because we should think we should do it. It's you reacting to your community and you're reacting to your users' input, and the data is driving you this way. So like any great service provider, like hey, let's adapt our services to better serve our clients, right? Our users.
exactly. Exactly. The
Very
feedback we've been getting that led us to develop this is that people are either too busy to swipe or burnt out or a combination of both. And especially I'll
sure,
add kind of like 30 plus demo. These are people who've been
sure.
swiping for 10 plus years at this point, looking for a better solution. And we've seen, especially in that age demo, some really high demand for this kind of service.
Good for you guys. That's awesome. I'm excited to watch it all. Okay, we've just spent a lovely 20 some odd minutes talking about everybody else, talking about the entire world, talking about the every segment of society, talking about the company and everybody that's involved in the company and all its users. I want a little bit about you before we segue to the end. Like I want to take us to the beginning in the bio and the intro and the fact that you said, that you think it's a beautiful thing when we can not only discover our own individuality, but we can find it in others, right? And find like-minded spirits. It literally is beautiful. It's magical, was your words. And so I want to shine some of that magic light on you a little bit. So if you could, like, kind of looking back on your own journey of self-discovery, how you advocate so powerfully for the LGBTQ community and for the idea of LGBTQ plus inclusion in both your personal and your professional spheres. I found a quote in your angel investor community profile, which, by the way, quick side note, we have two other alumnus of the show who are Angels members. One of them, Christian Regosa, who was like their first or second employee to help them organize it and get it going when he was, I think, living in New York at the time. And so that's awesome, kind of connected, shared history. He'll be super stoked to listen and watch this episode. But so I found this quote, which I just was blown away by, of your Angels investor profile. And it's being gay helped me acknowledge that everyone has a uniqueness and an individuality to be celebrated, just as I was an individual. So talk to me about how we foster this respectful, empathetic sense of ourselves and sense of others, and how we celebrate. Talk about how we can foster and celebrate this individuality in our relationships. And I'm not going to put it all on you to change the world, but maybe in kind of society at large.
That's a big question.
No pressure. No pressure.
um, I'm thinking, I mean,
And part of it feels like you probably are like, Rob, I don't know. There's no like formula. It's just I wake up and I am me, right? And I go into the world and I treat people that way. But if you had to think, like, what are some of the things that you learned? What were some of those superpowers that you absorbed over your life, where you were like, hey, you know what? When I'm super comfortable with my individuality and I can encourage someone else to do that, like, how might you and I talk about this so that someone who's listening, who maybe doesn't feel so proud of their own individuality and uniqueness, or like has some people in their work organization or in their local community that they're like, I don't know how to interact with them. I don't know how to engage with them. Like, what would be just some basic human advice?
so it's hard for me to articulate it because to your point, I don't wake up and turn something on. It does feel very it's how I'm wired, just to kind of be authentic and to celebrate the strengths in others and to see that. I guess a couple things come to mind. In general, just a point of view that I really live by is leading with empathy, which I think does indirectly tie back to this. I really feel strongly that at the end of the day, it's so important to zoom out outside of yourself and put yourself and to have other people's perspectives in mind. And so it's such a strong relationship builder at the end of the day when you do lead with empathy, but in a personal setting, with in personal relationships at work, building trust with your team, and ultimately just cultivating a strong team in general. So how that relates here, I think when you do lead with empathy and you see someone for who they truly are, you can really appreciate them for at face value for their beautiful quirks and superpowers and strengths and interests. And there's no one obviously is better than the next person, and we're all just human and unique in our own ways. And so when, right now we're having conversation, and it's really so special to be able to look at you or look at anyone in the world who you interact with, and just celebrate that person, and be like, what a gift it is to be talking to you. There's only one copy of you. And so when you can have that kind of perspective of just how special everyone ultimately is, and what a gift it is that we're here in the first place, even talking to each other, it helps build a bridge and a sense of connection and appreciation for one another. And and then in exchange, or kind of like as a result of that, it helps you be true to who you are, because if you're going to see others in this authentic light, then it kind of creates space for you to be like, and this is me, and this is my superpower, and this is also my weakness and growth area, and there's no shame in any of it. It's all just who you are. And I think if I were to try to articulate it, I think that's one angle that's helped me kind of embrace.
That's hugely insightful.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'll add a piece to it. My mom used to famously say when we were kids, she's yours is not your job, basically. Yours is not to be judgmental. Yours is to be grateful.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I was probably 14 before I figured out what she really meant. Like when I finally like asked her, I was like, I think this is what you've been saying to me since I was like born. But I'm not sure. I just want to make sure my education is in line with that. Like I shouldn't judge anybody that I come in contact with. I should be grateful for the fact that I've come in contact with them,
Right.
which is what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you're like this, and I thank you, by the way, for positioning it this way. Like that, we're literally we get to be grateful for the joy of the fact that we get to see each other like
Yeah.
this and have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
No, you wonderfully articulated. Thank you. All right, so last section. This is going to be like we're going to turn you into like I don't know, pick your favorite leadership coach, right? We're going to turn you into that guy now in the last section. So we'd love to turn that. I have one question for you, and let's look at it from a business standpoint. So you're obviously an accomplished COO operator type mentality at Lox Club. You were an accomplished operational leader at 305 Fitness. You think about organizational, think about hiring people and how to manage people and lead people and all that. So let's think about our fostering cultures of diversity and inclusion, like we've been talking about. But let's talk about what would 2 or 3 actionable strategies or tactics that you would say to a business executive about how they should go about fostering cultures of diversity and inclusion into their company.
Yeah. So, really important question, and something we think a lot about. I think the first is, we touched on this a little bit briefly just a bit ago, is to celebrate everyone's individual superpowers, and to acknowledge them, celebrate them, and yeah, and talk about them publicly and openly, so that there can be this appreciation of diverse strengths that people bring to the table, and an appreciation for how each other's strengths can complement each other on a team to help the team get ultimately to where they're trying to go. I think sometimes it could be easy for companies or for employees to hear, perhaps, kind of like certain strengths to be put on a pedestal in a workplace. Like everyone has to be X or Y or Z to be successful, or like this is an ideal model. When at the end of the day, actually, we all have very unique skill sets and strengths that should be acknowledged and celebrated. And very much a big fan of strengths-based leadership, and thinking about how can we lean into our strengths rather than trying to like fit a mold of what we think we should be. How can we lean into our strengths and help those get us faster to where we're trying to go? And so that's just one piece of advice that I offer off the bat. Also, obviously creating open lines of communication where every voice feels heard and supported, and have that be like walk the walk, like have that be genuine, like not don't just create like Slack channels, like create meaningful channels of communication it could be over Slack or it could be otherwise, but the point is it's not like for show. It has to feel authentic for people to that they have a real outlet for them to share their ideas, their perspectives, counterpoint of views, feedback, whatever it is that can help foster, greater sense of diversity and inclusion and general community on the team.
That's terrific. Those are super applicable, and I know people will take value from that. So I got to wrap up. I got to say, you're a great podcast guest.
Thank you.
But let me tell you why you're a great podcast guest. Not because this is your first podcast and like you managed to survive it with me, but you're a great podcast guest because how I judge great podcast guests, which is you're an intelligent, thoughtful, empathetic, wildly experienced guy, right? In this case, guy. But like that makes for a great conversation. I don't care whether you and I were sitting across from each other at a coffee shop or lunch or a walk on the beach. Like the truth is, like all we just did here. And so again, like I'm grateful for you. I'm fascinated by the work you guys are doing with Lox Club. I always try and say like it might not be my product or my service, but that doesn't matter. Like I can still appreciate its importance in the universe. And it sounds like you're going about it the right way, which I applaud. Anybody in the technology realm that is leveraging and paying attention to or sensitive to the importance of the human part of it and humanity and relationships and authenticity is to me going to get A pluses. So that's awesome to hear. But this is joyful, man. Like, thank you you made my day. This is a great conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. I really appreciate you having me on, and it was a lovely conversation. Really grateful. Thank you.
So quick, let's make sure. How can people follow you on social if they want to? I know you're not a big social guy, so we can direct them to wherever we like. And then also, how can they find or if they want to sign up or learn more about Lox Club?
Absolutely. So I periodically check my socials, of course. On Instagram, you can find me at Skarsh, Skarsh. And Lox Club, check us out on Instagram, TikTok. We have a very fun social channel. And if you want to sign up or if you're curious to hear more, our website, loxclubapp.com. And if you're curious about matchmaking, this new service we just launched, loxmatchmaking.com, we can get you all the info and hopefully find you an amazing match. That's the goal.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did recording it. As always, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's show was recorded here in Los Angeles and produced by the incomparable Deanna Bernal in Mexico City. We can only grow this show by you listening and sharing the show with friends. So please find, follow, subscribe, and share our audio-only show on Spotify, Apple, or via any other popular podcasting platforms, as well as find the video version of our show now available on our YouTube channel over at Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And of course, you can follow along on our various social media platforms for fun and informative clips and content at Entrepreneurial Thinkers, wherever you can find us. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at I am Rob Ryan on just about any social media platform. Gracias, thank you, and have an awesome day.